I'd like to call the City Council adjourned meeting to order for Monday, August 15th, 2005. Roll call, please.
Alderwoman Arbogast.
Here.
Alderman Solberg.
Here.
Garnis.
Here.
Heller.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
Gieselbeck.
Here.
Meisenheimer.
Here.
Walder.
Here.
Wilson.
Here.
And Alderwoman York.
Here.
Thank you.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. First, we'll have a motion to approve the minutes of the City Council meeting held August 1st, 2005.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Garnis and seconded by Mr. Solberg. Any corrections or additions to the minutes? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Next, Eric will talk to us about the Jet A fuel tank filtration system.
Well, good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Tonight I come for you for authorization to approve a bid that we received for a Jet A fuel filtration system for our tank at the airport. A couple months ago, we through Public Works approval, we went out for bids for a Jet A filtration system for inbound fuel into the Jet A tank. Basically, that means that fuel would come from off the fuel truck through a filter system and into our fuel tank, which is required through Mesaba Airlines, our air carrier at the airport. I sent out three bid specifications to 3 different companies that do this sort of work, asked for comments, suggestions, and anything else they wanted to provide information for. And really only one company came back with any comments and suggestions, so I took their comments, suggestions, made changes to my specifications, and sent the bids out again. And only the bid company that submitted a bid was Dedeman Brownie of Minneapolis for $34,765 for that piece of equipment. That piece of equipment probably will be 100% funded through our state fuel funds tax, so there probably won't be any city funds paid for this project. So I guess with Public Works approval, I would request that you authorize the purchase of such equipment.
We'll call for a motion, please.
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Meisenheimer, seconded.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Johnson. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Let's see, Shauna, you'll speak to us on the second ordinance, or second reading of ordinance number 0507.
Yep. Tracy talked to you about this at the last meeting. Basically, the items listed in section 16.0103 of the existing ordinance, presently exempt from city sales tax. The items listed, but they are subject to the state sales tax. This ordinance will, effective January 1st, 2006, remove the exemptions so that these items will become subject to the city's sales tax as well. State law requires that all South Dakota cities make this change to their sales tax ordinances effective January 1st.
So may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Walters, seconded.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Wilson. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Shauna?
This ordinance, as the one we talked about last time too, in effect what it does is, in the past, we have set the limits on the on and off sale liquor licenses through resolution each year. The Finance Committee has recommended writing these limits into city ordinance for 2 reasons. It eliminates the need to take action on these issues each year, and it makes clear what the city's intentions are in regard to the issuance of more licenses. Does anybody have any questions we would like to review on this item?
If not, may I have a motion, please? So moved by Mr. Garnos, seconded.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mrs. York. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we'll have Stanton. This won't require any action on our part, so.
Thank you, Mayor. Before you this evening is first reading of ordinance number 0509. As you recall, during the first meeting in July, I believe it was, the council approved a motion directing me to prepare an ordinance requiring candidates for mayor and aldermanic office receive a majority of votes cast in any election. So before you tonight is the ordinance that would require that majority vote. Obviously, it'll be, by my math, which is always suspect, 22 months, I think, before we'd ever actually see this implemented. But if you have any questions tonight, I'll do my best to answer them. If not, between now and second reading, if you do, just hunt me down.
Be more than 22 months, wouldn't it?
I can't, well, July
For
through,
the
council election.
I've only been in office a month and a half, so. Yeah, are there any questions to Stan on that issue? If not, Stan, will you inform us on the second one, please?
Mayor, I believe Mike Berger wants to come to the podium on that one.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Fox, members of the council. Existing ordinance 170104, paragraph 13, calls for the sewer tapping fee to be paid at the time an excavation permit is issued. This ordinance has always stated that the city shall make the tap to a public sewer and that the property owner shall pay the current tapping fee. However, in some cases, we may not know if a sewer tap exists or if one's going to be required until after the excavation occurs. So what we have done is made some minor changes to the existing ordinance to provide for the sewer tapping fee to be collected after a tap has been made to avoid charging a fee that may be unnecessary. This is not a new fee, we're just changing the way in which the fee is collected.
Does anyone have any questions to Mike in regards to the tapping fee?
Well, nothing with it to do.
If not, thank you, Mike. Next, Shauna, item number 7.
Thank you. This is an amendment to our existing salary resolutions. It's basically a housekeeping item. In April of this year, the street department position of heavy equipment operator / foreman became vacant due to retirement. At that time, the position and job description were reviewed, changed, and reclassified to an exempt position with more emphasis on the supervisory duties. Stanton and I at that time also met with the collective bargaining unit representing this group and notified them of the change that we were going to make. During the budget preparations, it came to our attention that we neglected to actually go in and amend the salary resolution. So this action will amend the resolution and incorporate those changes.
Thank you, Shauna. May I have a motion, please?
I'll make that motion.
Mrs. Arbogast, seconded by Mr. Giselbeck. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Stanton, you'll speak to us on the next one.
I believe Mr. Peterson wants to come to the
Oh, Herb
podium
is
to
going-
discuss that,
okay.
Mayor.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the council. In November of 2004, we were before you with an agreement with Indries concerning the payment for a regional storm sewer system that's in their development. As part of that, there is an outlet ditch that we also discussed at that time that we were going to be purchasing the property for this outlet ditch. We're coming before you tonight to get the authorization for the mayor to sign that agreement with Larry and Leallen Indries for the purchase of that property. The agreed upon amount and is shown on a handout that I had given you before the meeting. And that the net amount in that transaction that would be due from the city was $9,230.40 for the 32,050 square feet of property.
May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Motion by Mr. Wilson, seconded.
Second.
Second by Mr. Johnston. Any further discussion?
Mayor, I might add that there are sufficient funds in the land acquisition budget to cover this expenditure.
Thank you, Herb. If no further discussion, then all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. I think this one's Herb.
You're correct. Item 9 is a consideration for a reimbursement request from Mr. Dave Miller for some sidewalk costs over in the McKinley School area. I don't see Mr. Miller in the audience, but I'll go ahead and give you a summary. Dave Miller was one of the 3 residents in the McKinley area that in fact installed sidewalk as part of the preparation for the project we thought we were going to have. Mr. Miller is requesting reimbursement from the city in the amount of $428.44 for the sidewalk he installed last fall at his property at 109 12th Street Southwest. Mr. Miller certainly indicated that he installed his sidewalk because of his property was in the 2-block area surrounding McKinley School, where the city at that point in time was ordering in sidewalk. Now that the project's been abandoned, Dave Miller's asking to be reimbursed for his material expenses, which came to $428.44. This item was discussed at the July 26 Public Works Committee meeting. After a lengthy discussion, it was recommended that Mr. Miller be reimbursed at $1 per square foot, which was consistent with the reimbursement procedure when sidewalks were ordered in by the city council over by the middle school area. The Public Works Committee was deadlocked in its vote, and this issue was referred to the full council for a decision. It would still be my recommendation that should you decide to honor Dave Miller's request for reimbursement, that you do so at the $1 per square foot rate. Again, that would be consistent with what the council has done previously. The amount of square footage of sidewalk we're talking about is 211.2 square feet. So the reimbursement would actually be $211.20 if you went on the $1 per square foot. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
First, we'll have a motion, please.
I'll go ahead and make the same motion I made in Public Works, that we reimburse Mr. Miller at the price of $1 per square foot.
May I have a second, please? Second by Mr. Solberg. Further discussion?
Herb, we have 2 other potential reimbursement then to come forward if they so desire on this project?
It's either 2 or 3. If I recall, 3 people installed sidewalk before the city actually ordered sidewalk in, and then there was one more individual that installed sidewalk after the city ordered it in. So it could be a total of 4. As I see it, one was 182.8 square feet, and one was 160 square feet, and one was 196.8 square feet, for a total of 750.8 square feet.
The $428, was that his costs for material?
That was his cost for materials for the sidewalk he put in.
Okay. Just a word of caution. You know, theoretically, anybody in the city of Watertown who puts in sidewalk can come back and ask for reimbursement if you follow through with this scenario. And, you know, and I'm not going to argue over $211 or whatever, but I think you're talking about a great deal more money than just for these 3 or 4 sidewalks. So just as a word of caution.
Thank you.
Nancy, how did that work up at the middle school?
The way it worked, any place that we have actually ordered around, and it's happened always around the schools, ordered sidewalks in because of ADA requirements or because of some safety reason why it was necessary to have sidewalks around school, we have made that offer to the residents to reimburse them at the cost of $1 per square foot for their sidewalks. Now, this is kind of a unique situation, and I think our consideration should be limited to just those in the McKinley School District, although, you know, this council is the one that started about sidewalks, and I know there was sidewalks during the last couple years that went in all over the place. I see new sidewalks here and there all over town. However, the only one we had ever referred to as actually ordering them to be done as a city project was that area over in McKinley School. So those are the only ones I think would deserve our consideration. And those people in good faith decided to do it on the timeline that we offered to them and did it in good faith. And it's not really fair to reimburse them the whole price of those sidewalks because they are going to end up with a nice sidewalk. We can't take their sidewalk back away from them. So they are going to have a sidewalk, but I think this is a gesture of good faith on the part of the city because it was our doings. You know, we made the decision not to carry through with that order, so now we have to pay for it.
No, we didn't. We got voted.
I know.
So our decision didn't change. except that the vote said that we should change. And honestly, Nancy, I think you're stepping off the deep end here, really.
Well, actually, George, that's not quite correct. We're the ones that voted 2 or 3 weeks ago to discontinue that McKinley project. You know, it was at the people's request, but we decided to go along with that and turn that grant money back in. If we hadn't turned that grant money in, if we hadn't done the vote that we did, those people would still all be under order to put in their sidewalks. And then Mr. Miller would just have had a jump start on everybody else. But that's the area that we're talking about right now.
But for new districts and new neighborhoods and so on, they have to put in the sidewalks, right? So how does that differ?
No, it's just a policy that we started around those schools that because they were specifically being singled out to put in sidewalks in places where there weren't any sidewalks, that was a gesture that the city made to just kind of help out with the cost of those sidewalks because it was an order in a specific area. Now it's an ordinance that everybody has to do it, so it's going to be a moot point. In fact, I think McKinley School District would have been the last school district in town that would have applied to. Now maybe some other council, some other day will have to deal with that, but we decided not to.
Say, Herb, can you kind of explain what that letter was that you sent out? You sent out a letter to the residents in the McKinley area, right, on the sidewalk, ordering them to put it in?
That's correct. In a approximately 2-block area completely surrounding McKinley School area, I believe the date of the letter was somewhere around, I'm going to say October 20th because I don't remember exactly, but it spelled out in pretty specific detail what was required of the property owners in that area in terms of when they needed to install sidewalk, what the standard was, how they could apply for a grant assistance and, determine eligibility, and they had until July 15th of this year to complete the project. Now, there were certainly other factors in between October 20th and July 15th that impacted how far they got. The case you have in front of you here actually installed his sidewalk in September before the city ever ordered it to be done, because we had been discussing this specific project for, I'm going to say, probably almost a year as we were going through the planning phase, earmarked specifically for the McKinley School area because we had $175,000 worth of grant money that we'd received from the state that we needed to get going and use so we wouldn't lose.
Your Honor, I'm hearing two different stories here. Mr. Miller approached me and said he was ordered by the city engineer to put this in, and so since he is a contractor, he went ahead and put it in.
Right.
Now, now you say he put it in before he was ordered to. Now we've got a problem here. I'd like to have which is it, Mr. Meyer or Mr. Miller's right, or what is it?
Mr. Bloomquist was correct. Mr. Miller put the sidewalk in prior to us ordering it in. At the time he put it in, he didn't put it in across his driveway. So he got a letter saying that he had to put it in across his driveway, but the portion that he put in wasn't included in that letter.
Thank you.
I was just going to say, I think he did it because he's seen it coming. I mean, he's seen the writing was on the wall. These people are going to have, we're all going to have sidewalks, so maybe right now I've got the time to do it, and so I'm going to go ahead and do it. He was being proactive, and I don't think he should be punished for that.
There's no doubt in my mind that he did it in good faith.
That's true, but with the sidewalk ordinance that we were talking about all this time, I think there's many other people in the city that put in sidewalks too before they were ordered to or before we had completed it totally.
We have a motion and a second to reimburse Mr. Miller for $211.20. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Okay, we'll have a roll call, please.
Alderman Garnis.
Yes.
Alderman Heller,
No.
Alderman Johnson,
Yes.
Alderman Gisselbeck,
Yes.
Alderman Meisenheimer,
No.
Alderwoman Walder,
No.
Alderman Wilson,
Yes.
Alderwoman York,
Yes.
Alderwoman Arbogast,
No.
Alderman Solberg, yep, 6-4. 6 in favor, 4 opposed.
Thank you. Chief Vitek, you'll speak to us on the truancy issue?
Yes, good evening, Mayor and council members. The item number 10 before you tonight concerns the authorization for the mayor and the finance officer to sign the truancy officer agreement with the Watertown School District for the year 2005-2006. This is an existing agreement, and it is before you tonight for renewal and consideration. The school board at their July meeting has already authorized it on that end.
We have a motion to sign the contract.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Wilson, seconded.
Second.
Seconded by Mrs. Walder. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried.
Thank you.
Let's see. Roger will speak to us on item number 11.
Consideration of contract change order number 2 at the Aquatic Center with Karstensen Contracting. The amount is an additional $20,319.28. It's made up of 2 items. The largest of the 2 is the soils modification. If you recall back at your May 2nd council meeting, I came before you and informed you of some unsuitable soils that we'd encountered in the excavation under the bathhouse facility, in which we had to go deeper than the specified elevation. And the contractor's estimate, based on quantities that they had estimated, was about $30,000. I guess if there's good news in an add change order, it's that the final quantities and the dollar amount ended up at $19,148.62. That's the portion of the total that relates to the soils modification. We run into some of the same problems under the main pool and the Lazy River and the Adventure Pool, and this dollar amount was a total of all structures in which we had soils modifications below the specified elevation. The second item that makes up the total is for a lifting beam over the pump pit area. That amount is $1,170.66, and I had contacted Mayor Fox on Thursday, July 28th, when it was brought to our attention that we ought to consider this piece of equipment that will then allow us in the future, when we have to raise and lower pumps and motors out of this 13-foot deep pit area, the ability to do that with a chain winch on a beam system over that pit area. Seemed to make sense to all of us that, and that was the time we had to do it, because when they were blocking up the walls, we had to reinforce those walls to support this beam. And so those are the 2 items that make up the $20,319. The contingency portion of the project is $292,000, or 7.5%. This amounts to about 7% of that total contingency. I think I'll feel better when all the excavation below ground is done, because generally most of your contingency expenditures come in those things underground and unseen. Not to say that there may not be other items, but I'm sure the significant ones are the below ground ones. So, questions?
We have a motion to approve that contract change order number 2.
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Heller, seconded by Mr. Giselbeck. Any further discussion?
What's the status of the construction down there?
Well, we're probably about a 2-week behind schedule at this point, and we've got, fortunately, we haven't run into any concrete issues. We're a little concerned about either the perceived or actual cement shortage, but one contractor's indicated he's heard nothing from his suppliers. The other one's indicated a possible increase in his cost. but the weather's cooperated quite well. I guess we're just hoping that we can get them back on schedule and that we have a normal fall construction period here to catch up a couple weeks.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Mr. Peterson.
During the stakeout of the 14th Avenue Northeast street project, we found that one area just to the east of 20th Street, there was a considerable amount of backsloping that would have had to be done in a well-maintained and landscaped yard, and that wasn't included in the project. It was shown as backsloped, but we didn't feel that we would be covering all of the costs involved because it's a very nice yard, and we felt that putting in a retaining wall on that corner would be more appropriate, so that we didn't have to backslope clear into the yard and mess up the landscaping in the yard. There wasn't any similar type of work as part of the project, so we went out to landscapers in the community and got some quotes on doing this. And the low quote on it was from Sioux Valley Greenhouses in Landscaping for a total amount of $1,387.54. It's our recommendation that this proposal be accepted. This comes to you with the recommendation of the Public Works Committee for approval also.
We have a motion, please?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Meisenheimer, seconded? Seconded by Mr. Wilson. Any further discussion?
Yes, I have a question. Has this proposal been discussed with the landowner then?
Yes, it has.
And it meets with their approval? Is this like a retaining wall?
Yes, it's a retaining wall. The highest point of it is a 1.5 feet high. It will just be landscape blocks is what will be put in there.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Next, we received acknowledgement, or I did, of a notice of a raffle to be conducted by the Connington County Republican Central Committee. What they would want from us is if we have any objection to it, that I send them a letter indicating. I don't see any reason why we've done this in the past, so.
Motion to approve the raffle.
Motion to approve the raffle by Mrs. York, seconded?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Johnson. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we have a motion to authorize advertising for snow removal quotes for the 2005-2006 season. This would allow Mr. Rye to start gathering those for the next few months. So if I could have a motion?
So moved.
So moved by Mr. Garnis, and seconded by Mr. Giselbeck. Any further discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Next, we're on the open. Is there anything to come before the open? If not, we'll move to old business. Item number A is the appointment to the Municipal Utility Board of Rob Gravitt. Rob is a young man that has worked in the water field for a number of years. He's worked on the Webb Water Pipeline. I felt that with his background in water and pumps and so forth, that he would be able to bring some knowledge with the Municipal Utility Board. And so with that, I would ask for your approval as to his appointment onto the Utility Board. So if I could have a motion, please.
For discussion purposes, I'll make that motion.
Have a motion by Mr. Johnson,
I'll second it.
second by Mrs. York. Any further discussion?
Well, yeah, I think it needs to be discussed further. This is an appointment that I, quite frankly, oppose. It's traditionally and historically, the people who have served on the board at the utilities have been longtime residents of the city, leaders of the community, with only one purpose in mind, and that's to make a better utility department. I quite frankly don't know why this fellow wants to be on the utility board. I interviewed him, and I think there's some question in my mind as to his, not only his capabilities, but his interest in the in getting on the utility board. I don't think the appointment to the utility board, quite frankly, deserves to be a political appointment. I think it has to be somebody who has only one interest in mind, and that's the betterment of the utilities.
When Mr. Gravitt met with myself and 4 other council people, he certainly assured us that, you know, he had no hidden agenda, that he was willing to be a team player, that all he had was the best interest of the community in mind. And I know that he's probably one of the younger ones that has ever been appointed, but I think that certainly there's nothing wrong with having some youth on the board, and especially someone that brings some background experience into that area of, especially with water, which we're going to be building a water treatment plant here in the next few years. With that, I guess we'll close the discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion?
Roll call.
Oh, roll call, please.
Mr. Heller,
No.
Mr. Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Gisselbeck.
No.
Mr. Meisenheimer,
Yes.
Mrs. Walder,
No.
Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mrs. York,
Yes.
Mrs. Arbogast,
No.
Mr. Solberg,
No.
Mr. Garnis.
No.
We have 4 in favor and 6 opposed.
Okay, thank you. Well, we'll carry that appointment over to the next meeting. Is there any other old business to attend to? Is there any new business to attend to? Are there any liaison member reports? We will need to go into executive session for a brief time to discuss negotiations, and when we return out of executive session, I do not anticipate any action to be taken. So we'll have to clear the room, please.
Motion to go into executive session.
Second by Mrs. York. All in favor? Aye. Opposed?